Hey guys, what's up? iPenguinPat here, and today we're going to talk about the 2021 Forge of Empires Soccer Cup event. So this event got a new mechanic last year with the teams and the tickets and all that stuff to kind of differentiate it from the Forge Bowl. So we'll talk about that in a minute. Before we get into the mechanics though, let's look at the prizes and see what we can win. What are the goodies this year? So looking at the new buildings, the Athlon Abbey is our new toy to play with. And here you can see that we have a 5x4 building, and this building does not have attack, so send it back. No, I'm just kidding. Well, I'm not totally kidding, but notice that this is a blue icon, which means that it is attack for your defending army for your city defense. And in my opinion, city defense is a completely worthless stat, so I don't really value these things. This building does give 10 forge points and a footprint of 5x4, so it's 20 squares, and it does give some decent population. I consider this building to be a good starter building for players that are just leveling their buildings and they're not really in the end game. However, if you are an end game player, this building is probably not going to be real exciting for you because, again, it doesn't have attack. So let's send it back. All right, so aside from that, let's also look at the daily prizes and see what those look like. Just scrolling through, there are two separate mechanics for getting prizes. One is the daily training, and then the other is the tournament. I'll go over how those two work in a moment. But just kind of looking through, we've got the hippodrome that comes up, and the hippodrome, especially the carceres, I hope I'm saying that right, is particularly solid. You've got the various tracks, we have the wishing wells, we have Divine Selection Kit, Winner's Plaza Selection Kit. I mean, this event is just ripe with awesome daily specials. Colossus Selection Kit, not necessarily one of the best buildings around anymore, but if you already have, we'll say 8 upgrades, it doesn't hurt to go ahead and get 2 more and finish that bad boy off. We have a couple of the tracks for the forge points and the defense for attacking army, and of course we have our Sentinel Outpost, and the Winner's Plaza Selection Kit once again comes up. So that for the training is a plethora of options. You will not be short for items there. And then for the tournament, we also have a ton of some options. We have the Altar Garden Selection Kit, which gets you like the Altar of Artemis, kind of like an upgraded Royal Marble Gateway. We have the Colossus again. We've got Rogue Hideout Shrink Kits. We've got Hippodromes. I mean, we've got the Sentinel Outpost upgrades. One thing to note is that the upgrades are only available in the tournament, and the level 1s appear to only be available in the training. I don't know if that's going to map over onto the live version of this, but it's just something to take note of if that is an item that you are targeting at this stage in your game. All right, now it's time to consult the Spreadsheet of Madness and see how all these items stack up. Now, obviously, the Sentinel Outpost level 2 is still on top. You really just can't beat that 4% of defense for attacking army per square, and you don't need road. You can stick them anywhere. Obviously, one of the best items in the game. The big downside is that you're only getting 2% per item, which means that if you need to improve rapidly, this doesn't really give you a lot of options. It also doesn't give you population or forge points or any of the other bonuses, so it is really the type of item that is best for players that are truly in the end game and are trying to maximize every single square to the fullest extent. Now, if you have been waiting for an item to boost your attack for attacking army, this event is a really great option for you. The Winner's Plaza level 2, which you will get from the Winner's Plaza Selection Kit, is absolutely terrific. First of all, it gives you some of the best attack per item, meaning that you get 2 items and you get 13 attack. That's pretty darn good. Of course, this is in the higher ages. In the earlier ages, you don't get quite as much bonus. So keep that in mind when you're factoring that in. But you also get one of the highest attack per square of any item in the game right now. It is one of the best options available. So if you are, especially if you are an in-game player that are looking to boost your attack, the Winner's Plaza Selection Kit is definitely a good option. I also recommend holding back and maybe keeping 1 or 2 Winner's Plaza Selection Kits in your inventory instead of using them all at once, because Winners Plazas do show up in the antique dealer on the shelf, and you can buy them off of the shelf, and that'll actually get you a little bit further. Obviously, it takes some patience, but it will pay off for you in the long run. Now, let's talk about the tracks, because that is the signature piece of this event. The hippodromes are obviously the end pieces, and if you're not familiar with how the hippodromes and the tracks work, basically you have this hippodrome carceres, and then you have the hippodrome sphintodone or something like that. I don't actually know how to pronounce it, but we'll call it the hippodrome S so that I don't make a jerk of myself. And you get the bonus from the track on both pieces as long as the track is connected. And some people have gone really overboard with this. So here's an example of a ridiculously long track. Now keep in mind that it would be very difficult to do this, probably impossible to do without some amount of diamonds. Here you have the carceres and the hippodrome S, and then you have all the tracks in between. And some players have fallen in love with this for several reasons. One of the biggest reasons is that this defense track, the Ruzioli, I don't know, there's no L in there. I don't know how you pronounce it. I call it the defense track. Everyone knows what we're talking about. It's 6% per item. And it gives you, assuming that you don't have road running next to it, it gives you 1.5 defense per square, which is quite good. It's not like the absolute best, especially because Sentinel Outposts are out there, and it doesn't give you the forge points and population and anything else that you might want. So this is truly just for that attack. It doesn't give you happiness, any of that. So, but it's still excellent on a per item basis, and especially if you're in an early age where you need to build up, the fact that this is not hurt by what age you're in, you can be in an early age, you can be in a late age, you're still getting a big bonus. That makes this a really good option for early age players. Now, the one thing to keep in mind is that if you have road running next to it, you really do lose a lot of efficiency. Here you can see by having that road running next to it, you actually drop about 0.3%, more than 0.25% of efficiency. And that is definitely something that you want to avoid when you do your city planning. And that's one of the downsides of this. So for the people who fall in love with the tracks, then you start seeing these ones that are really long. And then you see people who find it necessary to have multiple tracks. And then you have the big daddy of them all. Multiple tracks. I have no idea what it would take to get that, but I promise you, you can't get that far without diamonds. So with that said, there's a little bit of decision making that's required when you're deciding, hey, where do I go with this? What should I do? Now, if you already have, if you were here last year and you already have the two hippodromes, they don't have to be level 6. Although I do recommend leveling the carceres to level 6. Your hippodrome S can be level 1. It can be level 6. It's up to you. Doesn't matter. You'll still get the full bonus. If you already have those, then it might make sense for you to just load up on defense tracks, and that's it, because that will help you a lot. Whereas if you were not here last year and you don't already have those hippodromes, then that leaves you in a position where you have to decide what you want to do. Do you want to go ahead and just focus on attack with the Winners Plaza? Do you want to go with the hippodrome carceres, which is what I'm going to do? I'm just going to focus on getting more carceres because I need the population. I'm happy to get the forge points, and I don't really have room in my city for all the extra track and stuff. And the other thing to keep in mind is that the sphintodone or whatever, it doesn't give you any attacking bonus. So that means that it really brings down the efficiency of this set unless you have a lot of tracks. And I kind of did some quick examples to show you, both for two parts of this. First, here you can see with only 5 tracks, that puts your efficiency, including road, at a 0.93% per square, which is below the 1% that I aim for at this point. 1% is pretty standard because there's just so much available now, and I think that things will get power crept out if they're anything below that. Now, this is something that you can add on to, and as you can see, once you jump up to having 10 tracks, where's it at here, that bumps us up to almost 1.1 per square, which is a much better look. And then obviously, when you start having these really long tracks like this, that takes you closer and closer and closer to that 1.5 per square that we're seeing. So the other thing to look at is what you're getting on a per item basis, because in most events you typically will get about 10 daily specials per event. Now, in 2020, we saw some crazy explosion of daily specials where you didn't even have to spend diamonds and you could get like 15 or 20 daily specials. That's not really how it was, or at least that's not how I remember it being in 2018 and 2019. It seemed like about 10 to 12 was pretty standard, and 2020 was just kind of a little bit of an anomaly. And now things have kind of fallen back down to the pre-2020 level. So it's not so much the daily specials have been nerfed, like I've heard a lot of people complaining about. It's that things have just kind of been brought back down to earth for whatever reason. So with that said, you have to keep in mind that you're only going to have so many items unless you're spending diamonds. And here you can see that if you go with the fully upgraded hippodrome, both hippodromes, both of them are level 6, that's going to take 17 items, which is going to really cut down on your attack per item. Whereas if you only go to level 1 on the Hippodrome S and you go to level 6 on the Hippodrome Carcerus, then you're looking at 4% per item, which is quite good. And if you spend diamonds and you go with a longer track, right? So you get up to where you're using 17 items, or you even go up to like say 22 items. At that point, now you're starting to get a much better percent per item. So these are things to keep in mind when you're trying to maximize what you get from each event, especially if you aren't spending diamonds and you can't afford to waste your daily specials. Also, some of this is just going to be dependent on when these items come up in the event. If they come up early in the event, sometimes you just get hosed and there's nothing you can do. Whereas if they come up late in the event, you may really push in and dive deep on those. Personally, like I said before, I'm going to be focusing on the Hippodrome Carcerus primarily because I don't have the space for anything else. The attack per square is still extremely good. It gives me the population I need, and I still have some just regular housing that I need to get rid of. And when you have whatever it is, like 20 or 25 Space Age Venus barracks, you need 500,000 population. Yeah, I know, I'm crazy. All right, guys, so let's move on to the next part of the video. All right, so let's talk about the mechanics of this event. Now, here on my baby beta city, which I have exclusively for showing you guys the event, there are two sides to this event. First, you have the training side, which is how you get your players. And there's actually two ways to get players. The first is by completing quests. When you complete quests, you get energy drinks, and then you alternate between soccer tickets and between player cards. Y'all are going to love me as I explain this. It's really confusing the first time you do it. It's so much easier once you do it, though. All right, so you have to get player cards, and then you spend energy drinks. This is very similar setup to the Forge Bowl, very similar setup to the spring event where you pick your player and you go down the field and you score goals and you get your grand prize. And this is a familiar mechanic, but these guys also offer cards. Here you see 3 random cards. Alternatively, you can buy cards here. You can go up here and you can buy cards to build up your team. Now, I strongly recommend against this, and I'll explain why when we get to the tournament. But basically, I would say just rush through the quest line enough so that you have enough cards to have, say, like 3 or 4 of each color type. So we've got the purple, we've got the blue, and we've got the green. Once you have that, you don't really need to worry about leveling your players up all that much. You do get a percent chance of doubling your reward when you have your players leveled up, but the percent chance is so small, it's really negligible. So let's look at the other half of this. Now the other half is the tickets here. And here you can see we have 3 tickets to start with, and that allows you to play a match. And then when you play the match, you have an option of a hard opponent, a medium opponent, or an easy opponent. And when you go up against them, you will have a percent chance of winning. And what this basically is, it's basically just paper, rock, scissors, right? You have the blue, which is strong against the purple, but weak against the green, and so on around in a circle. So as you craft your team, what you want to be looking at is what the other player has so that you maximize how you go up against them. So the way I typically do this is I empty out my team, and then I say, okay, what, sometimes it's easy, right? Sometimes you see 3 of the same color, and if you see 3 of the same color, then you just pick the color that is strongest against that. But in this case, we have 2, 2, and 1. So what I'll do is I'll say, okay, we have 1 green, right? So I want the 1 green attacking me, and that's it. So I'm going to load up my blue players, even though they're my weaker players, because this is still giving me a boost against their weaker part. And then after that, I would say, from there, it doesn't really matter where you go, blue or actually, you don't really want to go purple because you have less attacking on the green, right? So then that would mean that the green would be your next best bet. So let's go back and get my highest green player there, and let's see what that did. And now my chance to win is 34%, right? I went from a 30% chance to win to a 34% chance to win, even though these are players that are a lower level. And that's kind of why it's not necessarily a big deal to level up your team, because as you can see here, just by adjusting your matchups, it's going to be different. The other thing is that these typically fall in a similar range, where the hard is typically going to be around a third, the medium is going to be about 50%, and the easy is going to be about 75%. That's just roughly the range, and then based on how you match up, it'll change things. So all right, so we talked about this. Man, I don't want to redo that. We'll just play the game. All right, so you use the ticket, and it plays the game, and you win or lose. Hey, I won, which is really surprising. When you win, you have a couple things happen. One is you get league points, and those count towards the grand prize that you get. The other thing is that you get your chest, and you have the option of getting the daily prize. The hard chest, you have an 18% chance. The medium chest, you have a 12% chance of winning. And the easy chest, you only have a 6% chance of winning. There's lots of statistics. Of course, I have a spreadsheet to tell you how to optimize this in just a moment. So here, next round, you can see just even at first glance, even though my team is only ranked at 55 and his team is ranked at 103, that's basically just the combined levels of all the cards in your team. It's frankly, it's not really that big a deal, right? Here you see that's a really high % chance to win on the medium one. That's probably going to be the way to go. And then you see here we have the 3 on the green and we have 2 on the purple. So it's pretty easy to decide. I want to be able to attack the green, right? So I'm going to have as many of my purple people as possible, which is probably why this came out so good. Look, 80% chance to win. Now, we all know statistics and that this isn't actually an 80% chance of winning, but it is what it is. Inevitably, you'll do this like 100 times and it won't come out the way it should. So that's how it works. Now you have a running timer. As always, to encourage us to come back, we have this timer for tickets. So it takes 8 hours to generate a ticket. And this encourages us to interact with the tournament every day, even if we're not all that interested in the daily prize. Now, one way you can maximize your daily prizes is you can save up your quest line so that you're not actually doing anything on your quest line for a lot of the time. And then on a day when you really like the grand prize, you can rush the quest line as far as you can go. And that'll help you to build up a whole bunch of tickets so that you can have a bunch of shots at getting the daily prize that you want. Now, if you're going to buy tickets, that's also an option. I'll get into the data as to whether it makes sense to buy tickets or buy the energy drinks in a little bit as far as diamonds go. But anyhow, and then of course, as we mentioned, we have the ranking system, and you get some pretty big prizes. Now, what it takes to actually get to this ranking doesn't really justify the cost. Like these prizes, even though they're pretty good, you can get those prizes by spending a lot less than being first in the rankings. So it's just kind of a byproduct. Really, the only thing that I think is particularly unique is if you really like the avatars, because those are special avatars that you can only get in one way. And if you are, say, the #1 person, you are literally the only person on your server with that avatar. And I think that's a pretty cool thing, or portrait, or whatever you want to call it. All right. So hopefully that has made a little bit of sense. So just as a quick reminder, we have the training, which is our standard Forge Bowl, spring, just pick your daily player guy, and then you have the tournament. Now, I didn't mention this. You cannot enter the tournament until you have enough players to field a team. So that is one reason why you would start spending some of your energy drinks earlier on, or why you might go through some of your quests quickly, is so that you have enough players on your team in order to actually participate in the tournament. Could it be more complicated? Yes, it could. But this is still pretty complicated. All right, and if you're having a hard time figuring out what to do, come and visit the Discord. We will leave a link in the first comment and pin it, so you can come to our Discord and you can ask questions if you're having a hard time figuring out how to maximize this thing. All right, last piece, as promised, we have the spreadsheet guide. And what I did here was I have the top part, which is going to compare playing in the tournament, versus the bottom part, which is spending energy drinks on player, or rather, on players, on training. I don't know what it's called. Oop, going the wrong way there. So rather than putting the names of all the players and all that, I went ahead and I just put the daily special percent and the cost, because the variance for this is actually very minimal compared to what we see with like the Forge Bowl or with the spring event. The 10% doesn't vary very much. The 15% doesn't vary much. And of course the 5%, the differences between these is not very high. So there you go. And here you can see, generally speaking, the 10% seems to be the best value on the prize per drink scale. There's a couple cases where the 15 is, but the 10s, you just kind of have to look at it. Once you have this memorized, what numbers to pick, you can do that quite easily. Now, the much more dynamic and much more difficult to decide piece is in the tournament, because as you already saw, the way that you get matched up in the tournament can be, it can swing very wildly. You can go from having a matchup where you have an extremely high percent chance of winning. Like here, I only have a 50% chance of winning. Let's see what we have on this one. Look, this is supposedly the hard matchup, right? And I have almost as good a chance of winning the hard matchup as I do the medium matchup, or and even though this player has twice the team total or team power as this one, so you really do have to go through the motions and take the time if you want to maximize the event. So, and let's use some real data here. Let's see, we've got, this one's a 43% chance, and this one was what, 49? I'll just throw that in here. 43% chance, 49% chance, and I'm not going to bother with the last one. I'll just delete you out. So here you can see that you have a much greater percent chance of winning if you do the hard one in this case. And on a ticket per prize basis, that's actually quite good. And then I said, if somebody's going to spend diamonds, should they spend it on the energy drinks or should they spend it on tickets? So I kind of boiled it down to how many diamonds, how many gems per prize should you expect to spend? And here you can see that even at a 50% chance at the medium, you are looking at having a lower gem per prize cost than you do with any of the energy drink options. So if you had any question about what the better approach is, I would definitely recommend going for the tournament if you're going to spend diamonds and buy tickets as opposed to buying energy drinks. I do not recommend buying player cards at all, because all that actually does for you is give you a chance of the doubling your prize, because your matchups here are random. This is a random matchup. Sometimes you get a bad matchup, sometimes you get a good matchup. You just never know. So, and you can't really bank on the strength of your team to really affect this, because you'll get matched up with people who are way better than you or way worse than you, or whatever it is. All right, so the other thing is the league points here. We have 256 and 97. So let's drop that in here. We had 256 and 97. And I also kind of calculated, hey, what's your expected league points, right? Like if over 100 tickets or whatever, if we were to do this match 100 times, what would I expect to get? And here you can see that based on the percent chance of winning and the league points that you're expected to get, that the hard is a much better option in this particular case. Now, there will be matches where hard is not better and medium is better. But I would say overall, as you are going through the event, if in doubt, if it's close, the hard option is generally going to be better unless you're below 30% chance to win. Once you start getting below 33 or 30% chance to win, then you really should start considering doing the medium. With the easy, it's very rare that the easy is the best option. I know it seems like, people like to win a lot, and that might feel really good to win the soccer match against the easy players. But from a daily prize standpoint, you're going to get way less daily prizes. You're going to get way less league points. Just forget about the easy. Either do the hard or the medium. All right, guys, I hope this was useful and that you were able to take some of these items and maximize your Forge of Empires soccer event better than you did last year or better than your events this year. If you found this video helpful at all, please like, subscribe. I'll put a link to the Spreadsheet of Madness, and I will talk to you later.